I'm talking to George Fernandes. We've talked about Kargil, we've talked about you as defense minister. Many of your critics would say one reason why you were unsuited to be defense minister is that you are at heart a rebel, that you are an anti-establishment person. Yet the position you now occupy puts you almost at the pinnacle of the establishment. How do you respond to that?
Well, being defense minister does not mean that you become a part of the establishment. Establishment is a much wider...
What is the establishment?
Establishment is, well, there is the government at one end, there is the media at another, there is the whole church, meaning the entire religious establishment. Then there is the money establishment. All these together make the establishment.
You're a man who went to seminary at the age of 15, left at the age of 17, and then left the church. So I won't include you in the church part of the establishment, but the government part of the establishment. You're a member of the cabinet, one of the most senior members of the cabinet. Surely you are the establishment.
No, establishment takes you into a whole lot of other areas also.
In what sense are you not the establishment?
Well, I'm not a part of your five-star culture. I'm not a part of all your... the cocktail circuit. I'm not a part of all this. All that is a part of the establishment.
The establishment is more than five-star hotels and cocktail parties.
Well, I think
establishment is power.
I think it's a manifestation of the establishment. Your five-star culture and all the things that you all...
You still see, so you really see yourself as an outsider even now?
Yes, I'm an outsider to the extent that I won't fit into that class which calls itself the establishment. I'm not a part of that.
But you're doing this by the simple expedient of defining establishment to suit your convenience.
No, that's how I always said. Back in 1977 when I got into Morarji Bhai's government and I didn't want to be a member of that government incidentally.
That's interesting, you didn't?
No.
Why?
Because I didn't want to be anywhere near the establishment. I wanted to have...
Now you're using that term yourself?
Yes.
Alright, so then you changed your mind and joined the establishment?
No, well, I didn't change my mind, I was forced into it, but that's another story which you can have on some other day. Okay. But in that government, I did say more than once that I am an outsider. I am not a part of your establishment.
If you were unwilling to join the government in 77, why were you not similarly unwilling in 89? Why not now?
I was.
In fact, the version we've heard is that not only were you willing, when you weren't given the defense ministry, you created a fuss and they had to give you the defense ministry, which had been allotted to R.K. Hegde.
These are all the stories that have been spread, yes.
So tell us the truth.
Well, as I said, I was unwilling to be in the government. I got into government because I was persuaded by a whole lot of people that I should be in government.
Who persuaded?
I don't think it's necessary for me to...
And why were you persuaded? What arguments did they use?
There were a lot of arguments which I think are best not discussed in public.
There's a certain amount of ambivalence in what you're saying. I think certain tension between the two approaches, which many people would say manifests itself in the way you conduct yourself when in government. For instance, I look at your bio data, which was done in 1998, where it says interests, it says anti-nuclear activist. Now, isn't it extraordinary, anti-nuclear activist? You're a defense minister in a government that took India nuclear.
Yes,
isn't there a tension between those two approaches?
There always was, but I changed my position back in 1997 July. Now, I beg your pardon, 1996 July, when there was a pressure on the Indian government, which was then headed by Deve Gowda, and of which Mr. Gujral was the foreign minister, to sign on CTBT. And when it came to the crunch, and when the matter was discussed in Parliament, I stood up in Parliament. This was in the first week of August 1996. And I said, all my life, I have opposed the bomb. I have campaigned against it, within the country and outside the country. But if we are now pushed to a point where those who have the wherewithal, nuclear wherewithal, are going to tell India that we should sign on the CTBT and sign off our security concerns, then I want my country to keep all its options open. And when I say all its options open, that means every option.
But you didn't just keep an option open, you exercised one.
Well, if you keep your options open and if you come to the conclusion that a time has come to exercise that option, then you exercise it, and that's what we did.
Another of the criticisms against you is that not only are you an eternal rebel, you're also somebody who goes for causes. You're on record as saying that Suu Kyi's struggle is your struggle. Many insurgency movements to the governments in question, freedom fighting movements to others, have counted on your support. Many people would argue that a man who does all this shouldn't be in government.
Isn't freedom indivisible? Okay. Aren't human rights indivisible?
Okay, let's take it now specifically. You are a friend of the Burmese struggle. Is this accurate?
I am a friend of all democratic struggles all over the world. And I'm sure my country and my country's government is also a friend of all democratic struggles in the world. Did we not help the South African struggle?
Let's take this step by step. Let's start with Burma. Many Burmese students live in your house?
Yes, they have been living in my house for the last 6 years, 7 years.
How did that happen?
Well, they were students who fled from Burma. They came to Delhi. They were living with various people here. And I think the United Nations, what is that organization on refugees, was also giving
UNHCR.
That's right. They were also giving them some support. One fine day, the government decided that they should all be thrown out. They came to my house and they said, could you kindly persuade the Home Minister to allow us to be in this capital for a few more weeks till we are able to find some other place to go to. I said, take your bag and baggage and come and stay here.
As simple as that?
As simple as that.
And they stayed?
And they stayed.
Now, the government of India is officially on the side of plot. We are not on the side of Suu Kyi. Isn't there a certain tension between being defense minister, who's giving shelter to Burmese rebels, and working in a government which takes a different stand?
I think the government of India was also on the side of Suu Kyi when it gave her the Jawaharlal Nehru Prize.
Is that the position of the government of India now?
I think it always was.
Are we on the side of Suu Kyi now?
Well, I don't think the government of India has since changed its position.
Our stand remains the same.
I don't believe we have changed it.
All right. Let me summarize what we said. We've talked about Kargil, we've talked about your role as defense minister, and we've talked about what you believe in. You've said some interesting things, some revealing things. You've said that you had to be persuaded to be in government. But for the future, are we to go by what you've said on this program?
Well, we'll decide the future when the future comes.
George Fernandes, that's very unlike you not to be forthright, but thank you so much for coming. A more guarded than usual defense minister, but I think he said some interesting things. We'll see you again next week. Goodbye.